Imagine standing on a narrow spit of land where two seas wrestle for supremacy, wind whipping brine into your eyes, and feeling the pulse of history surge beneath your boots. Across the sapphire water glints a city of masts, 230 massive war galleys painted with Egyptian blues and scarlets, bronze beaks jutting like predatory birds. At their heart, a gilded flagship bears the serpent banner of a queen famed for turning statesmen into marionettes and empires into playthings. Behind you, drawn up on a crescent beach, waits an armada equally vast, lean Roman triremes, freshly caulked and bristling like jungle cats, commanded by a young warlord who will soon rename himself Augustus and remake the known world. Everywhere you look, the horizon smolders with tension. Priests throw incense on portable altars. Rowers slap tattooed thighs to keep rhythm. Officers pace, rehearsing orders they might not live to repeat. And as gulls shriek overhead, one singular electric question crackles through every mind. What if Cleopatra, Egypt's last pharaoh, wins? What if one daring queen and her beleaguered Roman lover can roll back the tide of an empire? The possibilities hang like charged storm clouds over the Ionian coast, ready to explode in a spectacle of flame, shattered oars, and shivering politics. This is not merely a naval engagement. It is the last gasp of a centuries-old dream of Hellenistic independence, the final wager of a monarch who has traded silk and silver, alliance and seduction, for a single battle that will decide whether her line stands among the immortals or is ground into the dust of Rome's relentless rise. 7 years earlier, few could have predicted that the fate of the Mediterranean would hinge on a queen from Alexandria and a Roman triumvir haunted by both triumph and failure. Cleopatra 7. Thea Philopator had already outmaneuvered siblings, wooed Julius Caesar himself, and secured Egypt's wealth through sheer political choreography. Mark Antony, Caesar's trusted cavalry commander, had risen from rough beginnings to become master of Rome's eastern provinces, an alpha soldier whose charisma could rouse legions and empty amphitheaters. Their union, half strategic, half volcanic, was sealed not only by passion, but by parchment. Cleopatra provided grain, gold, and exotic prestige. Antony promised military muscle and legitimacy. Yet the triumvirate in the West was cracking. Octavian, Caesar's adopted heir and Antony's nominal colleague, brewed resentment into propaganda, portraying Antony as bewitched, effete, and dangerously foreign, while painting himself as the sober guardian of Rome's values. When Antony chose Alexandria over Rome that fateful winter and declared Caesarion, Cleopatra's son by Julius Caesar, King of Kings, Octavian seized the moral high ground with gladiatorial precision. He forced the Senate to strip Antony of titles and declared war, not on Rome's old comrade, but on Cleopatra personally, branding her an Eastern sorceress who threatened Italy's hearths. The stage was thus set for a confrontation not merely of armies but of destinies, where Mediterranean hegemony, personal pride, and millennia-old pharaonic dreams would crash together like cyclopean waves. All summer of 32 BC, reconnaissance reports fluttered like autumn leaves across both camps. Octavian's admiral, Marcus Vipsanius Agrippa, a man of humble birth yet sea war savant, captured key islands such as Methone and Leucas, severing Antony's supply lines from the Peloponnese. He used fast Liburnian cutters to strangle communications and clog harbors, forcing Antony's lumbering quinqueremes to ration fresh water and barley. Worse, defections spread through Antony's Italian recruits, sapped by Octavian's clever promise of amnesty and land grants. Even so, Antony still possessed assets that could cow any senate. The formidable experience of his legionary veterans, Cleopatra's boundless treasury, and a fleet whose heavier vessels dwarfed those of Rome in both tonnage and intimidation. Many of his ships were converted grain barges braced with timber bulwarks, each mounting catapults the size of temple gates, capable of hurling fiery pots or 50-kilogram stone shot. Cleopatra herself funded bronze-armored towers on several flagships, from which archers could rain arrows into enemy decks 3 stories below. If that power could be brought to bear in a decisive engagement near friendly coasts, the Western fleet might splinter. Antony thus chose Actium, a promontory guarding the entrance to the Ambracian Gulf, whose calm, enclosed waters would complicate Agrippa's swift maneuvers and give his juggernauts room to crush lighter foes. Throughout the humid nights of August 31st BC, bonfires flickered like nebulae along Actium's twin camps. Rivals exchanged taunts across the narrow sound. Roman marines banged shields and chanted ancestral war songs. Eastern oarsmen answered with Anatolian pipe music and drum beats that mimicked storm-trodden surf. Yet tension gnawed within Antony's palisades. Malarial fevers crept through tents. Fodder spoiled. Morale buckled beneath rumors that Octavian had paraded Antony's will before the Roman people, revealing legacies bequeathing provinces to Cleopatra's children. Officers from long loyal Gallic cohorts discreetly sought terms with Agrippa. Inside her gilded pavilion, Cleopatra saw daggers behind every glance, yet still projected majesty, whispering in measured coin to fearful captains, distributing pearls as performance incentives, and rehearsing her final gamble. If fortune soured, she would deploy her fastest vessels laden with Egypt's treasury, break north through the chaos, and preserve at least her kingdom, even if Antony perished. This plan, half escape, half insurance policy, would become her legend's hinge. Dawn on September 2nd broke blood-red, as if anticipating the carnage. A brisk northwesterly wind rose, roiling chop that favored Antony's behemoths. Built for slugging contests rather than nimble pivots, Agrippa and Octavian convened a final council aboard the Prora Chakra, their flagship, its polished prow reflecting the citrus tint of coming battle. Agrippa suggested delaying, citing the wind that hemmed their smaller vessels. Octavian, frail of health yet iron of will, shook his head. "We strike. Fear is a stronger oar than any wind, and Antony's crews already taste it." Trumpets blared. Sailors hauled anchor, unfurling crimson sails emblazoned with the denari-stamped visage of the late god Caesar, as though summoning his spirit to witness vengeance. Across the water, Antony and Cleopatra emerged upon the poop deck of the flagship Antonius, an awe-inducing 10-banker with reinforced prow sheathed in gilded cedar. Antony wore a simple soldier's cuirass, but Cleopatra dazzled in Tyrian purple, her shoulders dusted with powdered lapis to evoke Isis. She reviewed her battle plan, 3 great divisions angling into a convex line, anchored by a reserve to thwart flanking. She stationed her personal Egyptian squadron astern, ready either to exploit breakthroughs or flee, depending on hazard. Over 25,000 infantry massed ashore to cover retreat or board crippled Roman ships that drifted near the beaches. The air trembled with shouted Greek commands, "Hupichorisate!" as helmsmen adjusted rudders and hundreds of rowers braced feet against benches worn smooth by years of toil. First contact came not with a thunderous crash, but with the whirring hiss of lead-shot slings. Agrippa's vanguard of liburnians dashed forward, pelting Antony's right wing to provoke premature advance. It worked only partly. A bulky decuires lunged but found itself isolated, immediately beset by 5 triremes whose beaks punched beneath her waterline, while marines clambered up grappling hooks. From the Antonias, Cleopatra watched the lumbering giant list, its tower archers firing until they vanished in a geyser of steam as the sea flooded the furnace room. A shiver ran through even her seasoned spine. These Romans were unafraid to close, despite the disparity in tonnage. Antony responded with a signal flag of scarlet diagonal stripes, attack speed. 70 Leviathans drove forward in disciplined cadence, oar banks digging like synchronized tusks. In minutes, the central basin of the strait churned into a cauldron of wakes and smashed timbers. Agrippa's tactic revealed itself. He refused set-piece engagement, instead darting at the edges of Antony's formation to gnaw away flanks, then reforming just beyond catapult range. Each Roman Liburnian boasted a Corvus-type boarding stern that could pivot 300 degrees, allowing lightning raids and retreats. Meanwhile, hidden behind the Roman center lurked fire ships, decrepit hulks filled with pitch and sulfur, ignitable by long-shafted ballista bolts tipped with burning rags. At Agrippa's cue, these floating bombs were towed by chains toward Antony's densest cluster. When the chains were released, the flaming monsters drifted with wind and current straight into a phalanx of quinqueremes. Flames leapt mast high, paint bubbled into caustic smoke. Egyptian marines hurled buckets of vinegar and sand, but wind fanned sparks across rigging like a plague of infernal locusts. 2 behemoths became pyres, whose heat blistered nearby vessels even without contact. Yet Antony's crews were legion veterans, cunning in improvisation. Using axes, they severed burning spars and cast them onto attacking Liburnians. One explosive barge, cut adrift before ignition, spun inertly and collided with an unintended victim. Octavian's auxiliary flagship, setting her aft castle ablaze until sailors doused her with barrels of goat milk, an emergency measure that left the sea smelling grotesquely of scorched dairy. For half an hour, chaos reigned with no clear victor, the Gulf echoing with Latin curses, Hellenistic wails, and the metallic scream of torsion springs. Then came Cleopatra's controversial move. Whether by prearranged sign or visceral instinct, she ordered her Egyptian squadron, 60 swift carvel-built galleys, to break south through a widening gap created by the fires. Sails unfurled, catching the freshening afternoon breeze, and the formation shot forward with startling speed. Witnesses later swore that Antony, upon seeing her banner pull away, froze as though speared. Some claimed he interpreted the maneuver as a feint to encircle. Others insisted he read it as betrayal or admission of defeat. The truth likely braided both. For Cleopatra, preserving Egypt's sovereignty and treasury outweighed even love or pride. By escaping, she kept alive bargaining chips should the battle turn. Antony, torn between duty to his fleet and devotion to his queen, made the split-second choice that sealed his legend. He transferred to a lighter galley, the Dionysos, and with a skeleton crew sprinted after Cleopatra, signaling no one. A vacuum formed at the center of command just as Agrippa launched the next phase. Sensing the enemy's spine snap, Roman squadrons surged. Without Antony's unifying voice, his left wing hesitated, unsure whether to pursue Cleopatra or hold formation. Agrippa exploited this indecision like a chess grandmaster forking queen and king. He split his fleet, half harried the disintegrating left, half concentrated overwhelming force on the smoldering central bastion. Ramming tactics, mostly obsolete against earlier heavy ships, now found new relevance against confused, slower hulks. Roman prows hammered stern posts, marines boarded with gladii flashing. What had been a slogging slugfest transformed into abattoir. Deck planks gleamed slick with gore. Soaked ropes snapped under weight of clinging corpses. Somewhere amid this carnage, Sextus Arruntius, Octavian's fiery lieutenant, mounted the enemy's flagship tower, planted a Roman eagle, and signaled victory horns so loud they echoed all the way to Nicopolis's marble theater across the bay. On shore, Antony's infantry reserve looked on aghast. Their camps lay crammed with pack animals, gold idols, and cartloads of minted tetradrachms. Desertion bloomed like mold on bread. Already some centurions spiked standards, signaling surrender to approaching Roman scouts. By dusk, only a smattering of Antony's colossal fleet remained afloat, many without rudders, adrift amid oil-slick fires that painted the water an apocalyptic orange. Agrippa ordered lanterns hung from intact masts to illuminate survivors, a mercy that doubled as humiliation. Fishermen in humble skiffs began rowing out, hoping to salvage bronze ram beaks for scrap or pry gemstones from enemy prows. Little did they know they were harvesting relics of a vanished world. Meanwhile, Cleopatra and Antony fled southward in sullen silence, streaking past Tanarum and around the Peloponnese by candlelight. Below decks, Cleopatra's treasurers guarded coffers stuffed with coin and lapis-laden chest plates, funds originally meant to bankroll a second campaign. Above, Antony grappled with a nightmare realization. In choosing personal allegiance over command, he had abandoned legions that once would have died for him. How could Rome, which prized virtus, manly excellence, ever forgive? Each crashing wave seemed to whisper, "Defector, defector." Yet Cleopatra, ever pragmatic, plotted their next play: fortify Alexandria, rally remaining legions in Cyrenaica and Judea, leverage her navy's survival as bargaining leverage. She drafted letters to Cornelius Gallus, governor of Egypt's Red Sea ports, ordering immediate muster of allied ships, and dispatched riders toward the Levant. Still, the genie of defeat could not be corked. Morale in Alexandria crumbled upon rumors. Trade partners hedged. The priesthood of Ptah prepared for worst-case siege. Octavian, for his part, wasted no propaganda beat. He minted new aurae depicting a crocodile chained beneath the legend Aegypto capta, Egypt captured, before he had even marched on Alexandria. So certain was he that destiny now lay quivering in his palm. The aftermath of Actium unfolded like a Greek tragedy. Within a year, Octavian's legions stormed Egypt. Antony, driven by hopelessness and perhaps a flicker of honor, committed suicide upon hearing false news of Cleopatra's death. The queen attempted final negotiation, hoping to secure her children's inheritance, but Octavian's iron diplomacy offered little more than ceremonial mercy. Choosing the legacy of a goddess over the cage of a triumph parade, Cleopatra embraced the fabled asp, or, as some papyri suggest, a swift poison smuggled in a stylus, and joined Antony in death. Egypt, last jewel of Alexander's broken diadem, became a Roman province, its granaries feeding an empire that would soon outlive even the memory of republic. Octavian, rechristened Augustus, leveraged Actium's laurels to redefine warfare as peace and autocracy as restoration, inaugurating a Pax Romana that would cloak the Mediterranean in marble roads and aqueducts, yet dim the torch of republican debate for 5 centuries. Still, across time's gulf, the wind over Actium retains undertones of that furious day, carrying lessons for any soul daring a high-stakes gamble. It whispers of the peril in confusing charisma for strategy, of the tipping weight of logistics over valor, of how love and power intertwine until one strangles the other. It reminds that navies, like ambitions, must navigate currents beyond mere scale, the subtle eddies of morale, propaganda, weather, and contingency. And within Cleopatra's final throw, we glimpse the eternal human reflex to risk everything on one bold stroke rather than fade in cautious increments. An impulse that both elevates civilizations and consigns them to ruin. If the spray of history's most dramatic naval duel has left salt on your lips and fire in your imagination, don't let the voyage end here. Board our channel by smashing the subscribe trireme and ringing the bronze bell so you never miss another story where iron wills collide upon the seas of fate. Share this saga with friends who crave epic strategy, tragic romance, and the razor edge between glory and oblivion. Then drop anchor in the comments and tell us, which forgotten clash or enigmatic figure should we resurrect next? Your curiosity fuels our expeditions across the centuries, so hoist the sail, tighten the rigging, and join us on the next crossing, where the past is always waiting to test the mettle of those bold enough to confront it.